Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from Internet Partnership Radio with the latest on the tropics. Sorry I've been away a few days. I've been dealing with a very nasty August cold, as many have, as at this time of year sinuses and allergies are definitely acting up. I did want to start by showing Hurricane Irene, the forecast from the 24th of August by the National Hurricane Center, and of course what actually did occur. And you can see, quite frankly, it was pretty good. You can see 8 p.m. Saturday was where the system was over eastern areas of North Carolina, and you can see 8 p.m. Saturday was the forecast line. Intensity forecasting hasn't improved, though, as greatly as track forecasting have, because there are so many factors that go into a storm. Nonetheless, thank goodness the storm weakened to a Category 1 by landfall in North Carolina and New Jersey rather than a Category 3 or a Category 2 going up the coast. There would have been a significant difference if Irene would have been a major hurricane heading towards the Delmarva and being a major hurricane way down here in the Bahamas. There is a significant difference in that. Nonetheless, it was a devastating hurricane, billions of dollars in damage, and no doubt that's probably the last time we're going to see a Hurricane Irene. We do have Tropical Storm Katia out there, and Katia, it was a hurricane. It's now a tropical storm as of 5 p.m. It's at 16.1 north, 49.2 west. Winds were down to 70, gusting to 85. It's moving straight west at 18, and the pressure up at about 990 millibars. And you can see the track here. It's expected to become a hurricane again later tonight, and then eventually strengthen into a major hurricane, push west-northwest, and then as the ridging might start to rebuild to the north and the weakness close up, a slight bend west. But there is uncertainty, and a great deal of it, now more than ever. And what is most disturbing to me is that a few days ago, when this system was only an invest, the model guidance at this point had the system moving much further to the north than it has, and if the current motion held, these models may be a little bit too far to the north as well. And if the ridging does rebuild, if there is a lack of a weakness and there is high pressure aloft to the north of it, and that ridging steers the storm, the hurricane, back to the west, even as much as the UK Met shows, then it becomes very difficult, even with a strong right hook, not to threaten areas of the Bahamas, the East Coast, and certainly not to threaten Bermuda. And so Katia is going to be a problem because it's still a long way away. I mean, we're talking days from even coming into view of the Lesser Antilles. But as this system continues to remain weaker and moving straight west, that changes the equation to where we may end up seeing a system much further to the west in the long run than what we were thinking earlier. It's way too early to speculate on that, but there's always going to be the speculation, and we'll discuss that. You can see Katia appears to be strengthening again as the sun starts to go down. The convection refiring over the center has been undergoing some shear, and you can see the convection is still a little bit off to the northeast of where the actual center of the storm is. Nonetheless, it is a system in the making to become a major hurricane, and it was a hurricane already, so I think the odds are favorable that it will do so. Now, I did want to touch on Invest 93L, because this system, there's no idea where it's going to go, other than the fact that some of the models show it doing anything from staying a weak tropical storm to becoming a strong hurricane. Some of the models bring it right into Louisiana and out. Others bring it into Louisiana and hook it around. I've seen some take it to Louisiana, hook it around, drop copious amounts of rain, tremendous amounts of rain, 20 inches of rain, and then move it down towards Texas as a strengthening hurricane. The current motion would be a motion off towards the northwest, and it is really anybody's guess right now, but obviously Louisiana, this region here, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, appear to be most at risk from this system. And when we take a look at it on the satellite imagery, the Air Force has been flying out there, seeing some signs of maybe some curvature here, a lot of wet weather on the eastern side here of whatever circulation may be developing. And if this does continue to move towards the northwest, then obviously we could see an impact anywhere along the Texas or Louisiana coast, but keep in mind with the model guidance spread like it is, this is very, very uncertain, and we'll have to wait and see just what happens when the system initializes. That changes everything. If we get an initialization of the system in here, for example, and it's moving northwest and it's kind of lopsided, the chances at significant strengthening and any kind of stall would be minimized. But if the system develops somewhere else or starts to jog around more towards the south and do loops over those hot August Gulf of Mexico waters, September now, then we would be very concerned about strengthening. So we're going to have to watch this carefully. I will tell you, if you're in Texas, you need the rain, but if you're in Louisiana, you don't need 20 inches of rain. If you listen to the 12Z GFDL, you don't need a strong hurricane. I mean, we're talking almost a major hurricane coming in here, Morgan City, New Iberia, those areas, and still spinning around. Now, granted, we don't even have a system yet, and this is only showing 72 hours out that we have this, near major hurricane, but look at these water temperatures down here. This is a very disturbing trend this year with these fast developing systems, and we'll see if this does become a tropical system, a tropical storm at the very least. I should note we do have Invest 94L, which is very close to becoming a tropical storm itself, although it should move out to sea. And what's funny about this is that this is another thing we've seen this year, these very, very potent low-level circulations that are sheared in contrast with storms like Katia or Arlene or Irene that are in more favorable environments. Of course, if this does become a tropical storm, which right now it would need some more convection, I think, to achieve that status, it would be named Lee, and if the system in the Gulf became a tropical storm after that, it would be named Maria. So we're getting pretty far down the name list, and in 2005, mind you, at this time we were on Lee and going on to Maria after the devastation of Katrina. So 2005 we saw Katrina, Lee, Maria right at the end of August, the first days of September. Here we are in 2011 seeing Katia and the potential for Lee and Maria in the next 24 hours. We're not that far off, so we may be getting towards Greek alphabet territory towards the end of this season. Don't be surprised if we see another Tammy and another Vince, and we're not going to see a Wilma, but we could see a Whitney. So it's going to be pretty crazy if that does occur. I should note that the forecast trends with the Katia, here's what's disturbing to me. These models, this is the Canadian model, this is as of 12Z. This is the only model that I could find that initializes it as a tropical storm of 70 miles an hour. I know the GFDL initializes it as a 90-mile-an-hour hurricane, the GFS a 90-mile-an-hour hurricane, DH-WRF is an 85-mile-an-hour hurricane. So let's put it into motion and see, well, what does it do with the correct initialization? And you can see the Canadian model brings Katia back to strong hurricane strength, not quite a major hurricane right away, but look at how far west it gets with these ridging heights above it. This would be very, very dangerous for Bermuda and potentially the Bahamas and the East Coast, and that model is the furthest west that I have seen, or at least keeps it on a more westerly course to where it skirts north of the Virgin Islands, and that's the only model that initializes it where it's at now. So that's something to think about, no doubt, especially if you live in the Virgin Islands and the East Coast, to keep an eye on the system just in case Katia decides to pull a surprise on us. The European model as of 12Z, you can see, takes Katia right on up and then bends it west, and here's the disturbing trend. 120 hours is 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A major hurricane still moving straight west. It needs a far right hook to miss land, and lo and behold, it actually does that. So if the European panned out, we would probably not be talking about a landfall, but still, you don't want a major hurricane moving straight west at, 25, 27 north, and then hope that it somehow makes this hard right hook. It's happened before, and this model's showing that, but nonetheless, still a disturbing trend. Note what it does with our Gulf of Mexico system. 72 hours, 96, 120 bringing it into southeast Louisiana, and sticking around for a couple of days, and then still, within a 10-day period or so, lower than normal pressures here over the western Gulf of Mexico. That is not a good sign for later on the hurricane season. I should note Katia, as you can see, has been getting sheared. There's lower shear. The little anticyclone over the top of it is a little bit displaced to the southwest, and that's what's been imparting this shear on it. But as the system moves towards the west-northwest, conditions should improve in the next couple of days, and Katia should become a major hurricane. Certainly a hurricane again, it looks like, if satellite trends are anything, potentially by later tonight. Also, lower than normal wind shear developing over the top of our system in the Gulf, and that is an indication that pressures might start to lower, and over those warm waters we could see development. So it's going to be an interesting couple of days here in the Atlantic Basin as we continue to get very far down the name list. Don't be surprised if in about 3 weeks we're dealing with Philippe and Rina. I wouldn't be surprised in the least. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. I'll see you next time.